Welcome to another exciting quarterly release webinar. We're going to run through in a lot of detail, you'll see in a few minutes, some of the most exciting features that we have for you in our latest product update for the ProcessMaker BPA platform. Um, and with that, I'm gonna go ahead and start moving. Like I said, we have a full agenda today. We have quite the demo lined up for you, so you'll see in just a minute. I am MK Wazalewski. I'm the product marketing manager here at ProcessMaker. Joining me is Jose Maldonado, who is going to give us a fantastic demo in just a few minutes. And then behind the scenes, we have a couple members of our product and marketing teams. They'll be handling Q&A and dropping some links in the chat for you there. All right. So first, I'm going to give you a quick intro, remind you some of the cool stuff we've come up with so far this year, and then run through the highlights, and then we'll dive into the demo with Jose. We actually are not going to have time for a Q&A today because we have so much to show you, but feel free to enter questions in the Q&A in the chat at the bottom, or reach out to your customer success manager to follow up with more questions. So just a refresher, dev environments, if you are a current customer of ProcessMaker BPA platform, your development environment that the IT manages is already updated. You should already have access to all these features that we're going to show you. And then production environments, so all the end users, you will all have access to this on January 7th. That's when you'll get to use some of the cool stuff that you're about to see. Again, as always, reach out to your customer success team for any details about that. So let's do a quick refresher of what we've come out with over the last year for you. We introduced Smart Inbox to ensure that all of our users can quickly find and complete all of their tasks. We have expanded projects documentation and some of the granular permissions as part of collaborative process design. We've grown our AI assistant to offer you more ways to design faster with AI than any other BPA platform I've checked. And our AI agent, Flow Genie, integrates AI into your business processes in an approachable and reusable design studio built right into ProcessMaker. No integrations necessary. And finally, with the addition of our process intelligence tool, we've given you the most powerful way to discover, improve, and enforce, when necessary, your organization's processes. So, how are we continuing all of those themes with our latest release? We're going to go through a few of these highlights. I'll go through these real quick in just a minute. But we're not going to get to everything today. There are about 20 new features hidden in Easter eggs and throughout the environment. So please go to docs.processmaker.com/quickstart. You can see much more detail about how to start implementing these new updates immediately. I think hopefully we'll be able to put that in the chat for you here soon. You can scan this QR code if you were quick enough, but I have to keep chugging along here. So let me tell you more about process intelligence imports. So our process intelligence tool combines all of the power of process mining and watching what processes are and task mining, seeing what people are actually doing all day into one AI-powered tool, which then builds a deviation model, a variant model of what that process is, what's really happening in an organization. And now you can import that directly into the platform to start turning it into an automated process. So very quickly, no import, export nonsense. You just, well, there's an export and an import, but it's very straightforward. And you can go ahead and start designing and save yourself a lot of time. Next up, we have the screen design clipboard. This is a popular request among many of our designers. So you create an amazing form and you want to reuse a bunch of elements. You don't want to have to start from scratch all over again. So you can keep those branded elements. You can keep the really nicely designed date selection form section that you created. You can reuse those, drag them into your new into your new forms from the screen design clipboard. You'll see maybe a little bit of that here in a minute. In addition, DevLink is a way that we let people design in your development environment and then maintain the correct updated version when you're ready in your production environment without all the mess of figuring out if you are using the right version, accidentally adding duplicates, um, import, export, and all of that. It's an easy link, you'll see again in a moment, between multiple environments of the platform. Conversational forms are something that we've had for a little while, but we gave them a big boost. And so now in the world of evolving AI agents and using mobile devices to get a lot more work done, you can use our newly updated conversational forms with AI built in. So you can include a Flow Genie. You can design genies in the Flow Genie Studio and include them in your conversational forms. So you have one long chat that is completing the process for the end user. All right. And again, building on all of these tools for making it easier for lots of people to work together. Say you have an international company, you can now make sure that everyone using the platform has access to a translated version of the entire user interface, all the buttons, all the labels, in addition to the process and screen translations that we've had for a while, all assisted with AI. So within a few minutes, an AI tool will do all of those translations for you, and then you can make them available to your users. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jose, who's going to show you some of the amazing things and how they work in real life. I'm going to stop sharing. Jose, you ready to go?
Yeah, that's great. It's a great intro, MK. Am I coming loud and clear?
Yes.
Awesome. Let's kick things off. Because as you mentioned, there are a number of things that we want to get through. Time is short. Let me know if this is coming up. And bear with me because screen sharing always takes the best of me. And all right,
No worries.
how's that?
It's thinking about it. There we go. I see the login screen.
Perfect. All right. Well, here we are on a fresh new install of winter 2025. It is a beautiful, cold, winterish day here in Durham, North Carolina, so very apropos. Let's go ahead and kick things off. Let me see here. All right. All right. So you mentioned new eight translations. So let me just log in and we can take a closer look at of what that is. Every screen in ProcessMaker is going to include this language picker. Let me just open any screen here with some text. And of course, these are the ones that come by default. I'm just going to go ahead and change my language, and you can see it changes on the fly. That alone is a big improvement um, since manipulating languages was something that you couldn't kind of do on the fly. And we've expanded it so much. Let me just show you where this is put together. In our admin tab, we used to have this translations tab. It's always been there, but now it's fully reimagined. Here are all our languages. Let me just open anyone. And you can see we have every element in our UI from menus to platform strings, dashboards, processes, and of course you can manually go through everything. We've had process translation in the past, but now it's centralized in this UI, and you can see the status if some assets are translated or not. So you can just maintain and curate different statuses of these. You can see here our welcome dashboard, for example. Let's take a close look. It's not translated. So what that means is that you before we didn't support dashboard translations, only processes. If you have any menus, you can also manage their translations here. So for instance, see this welcome back message. This is part of our welcome dashboard. So if I go into our Spanish translation, you'll notice that the menus are translated, but that particular dashboard text was not translated because it's part of that welcome screen that's kind of missing. So let's see how we can fix that real easily. Just going to come in here. And here are those dashboards, and that's the default dash. Notice it's blank. We've got AI translation. So of course you can manually update every label, but our AI will just going to figure out what's missing for you. Um, and so let me just give it a second here. There it is, 100%. So now it's fully translated. Let's see what this means. If we take a closer look at this, there we go. Here's our welcome screen, and of course now that was translated. Um, this will apply, of course, to all your custom dashboards as well. Any page that you've created a dashboard has a rich text box will inherit translation automatically. And then a huge ask that people bring up is, what about languages that are not part of the default? Well, now you can own that directly as well, because you can add basically any language that you can imagine, because now our AI assistant is just going to do the heavy lifting for you. So let me just, search for any language that we don't have currently installed, like Portuguese. We have several Portuguese clients interested about this. So let's just check that out. So the first time you create it, it's going to show up. But of course, you notice everything is blank, and you can absolutely uh, run some manual translations, no problem. So I can just come in here, excuse me, and if I happen to know the label, I can do manual translation. Um, but of course, what's interesting about this is the possibility to do it massively, and everything that's also AI generated can be edited. Maybe you just want to fine tune it and tweak it. Um, so in this example, of course, 3,700 labels in our platform. You don't want to go on them on your own. I'm just going to go ahead and pick that translation, and you notice it starts a background job just plowing through it and figuring out what it needs to do. And this is going to happen for every language that you configure. All right, once it's done, here it is, and just like that, we enabled a new translation from scratch that just didn't exist seconds before in our platform. And so it's immediately available. Your users can now click into it. Let me just show it real quick. And there it is. We've translated, you notice the menus, the labels here, and if we click in any other section in the interface, it's fully translated. So we're very excited about translations. Our international crowds, ProcessMaker alone, we have team members in over 14 different countries in the world. We're very proud of. So a huge bump in productivity. Let me log into a different instance here real quick to kind of move things on, because I want to talk a little bit about some of the new designer tools that we've been putting together. So if you remember, I don't know if you guys, for those of you who pay attention to our webinars, last webinar, we put together an applicant selection process, this candidate application process. This was from last webinars. So for this one, yeah, here's Juan Garcia. We were evaluating resumes that our genies were helping us evaluate. So now let's do just a continuation of this, maybe a start and onboarding, kind of continue this trend. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new process. Here's the import PI process that you were talking about, MK. We're not going to look at that right now. Let me just go ahead and start a new process pretty quickly. We want to basically do something to work on the onboarding. Actually, I'm just going to go through the assistant. I plugged in here. Let me paste a prompt. This is going to be a very simple process just to um, onboard new employees. No, in fact, maybe I, don't need the AI assistant because I want to flesh it out as we go. But let's just go ahead and use this very simple process. Send a welcome email, and then yeah, update the metadata. Send a welcome email and invite an employee to fill out an onboarding form. We want to use a conversational screen for that onboarding form, but we'll get to that. Let me just set this up real quick. So we have a fresh process here. I'm not going to create the asset so we can build it together. And so let's, start adding some pieces into this. So, excuse me. So let's come ahead here, and in order to decide which applicant we want to um, onboard, we're going to create a task for HR to basically select an applicant, those that have been approved in that process that we put together on our last webinar. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a collect onboarding info from HR. Pretty straightforward process. And then we're going to just basically create a new screen for it. Perfect. All right. And all right, new onboarding screen. Let me just change it. We don't need to use a conversational right yet. All right, so here I'm in the screen builder, and let me just open any template here for a new hire. Have a clean screen here. All right, so this is a clean template. We can, it's rating for us. So I want to show this to HR folks in order to be able to select which applicants we have that. So in order to drive this, I'm just going to go ahead and add a record list, basically a table or a grid with information from our applicants. So let me just, approved applicants. And what we've done is we've added a new data source for these record lists. You'll notice that I don't want to populate it from a variable, but from a collection. And now we can just select a collection right off the bat. So if I switch here real quick to our collections tab, that you'll notice we have our collections here in our designer assets. We have a collection with approved applicants. So basically our process where applicants are approved are dropped into a collection, and we can use this as a kind of a place to pick them up. Now, usually in order to populate collection data on a screen, you'd had to pull it from a data connector and do some tinkering, but now it's very straightforward. All we need to do is basically select a collection. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that collection, and then pick which columns we want to show. It's automatically letting us know what columns exist in our collection. So which ones of the collection do we want to show on screen? We can configure the pagination. We can configure some of the design choices here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add an applicant name and a job position. And just like that, we are populating collection data straight on our screen. We don't need to tinker with any data connector to pull it off. So notice how immediately whatever is in our collection shows up here. Now, of course, this is a regular control of ours. So if we wanted to filter this, we can add some PMQL, not bring them all. So pretty straightforward off the bat. So now that we're putting this together, let me just come in here, and then let's say we want to select one of these, right? Notice that we can do a selection here, and it's going to bring all the information that we picked from the control. So now I want to show data for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a separate record control screen element. And this is also a new component where you can just insert into your screen the view screen of any collection. You know that our collections have view screens that you have to configure anyway, so it's very easy to now recycle them. Since we're pulling an applicant's ID off of that select list, then we can use that ID to just pull the piece, and we can use this even to edit and update collections as well. So that means that if I select here, notice that now we're pulling this directly from the collection. We didn't have to put this together at all or read from data connectors. Just pick your collection and a pull. So pretty nifty at that. So now that we have this, let me enrich this. So I'm logging into a separate instance. This is a different instance. Notice that I'm using a different user. This is because I just logged in here. It's a different user at a training instance where we already have some assets built. Because I'm thinking there are already some components that I want to leverage in our new onboarding process. So let me just browse some screens here at our target separate instance. And notice we have a different employee onboarding screen. And this one is pretty nice. It has a required account selection. It has some development plans boxes. So I want to take these elements and use them in my screen that exists right here in a different instance. Right here I'm with Ringo. So I'm going to link these two together using DevLink, which is a great way for you to now move assets between your dev and prod instances. And the way that it works is basically your linked accounts or your linked instances. All you need to do is call them out. You can link more than one for that matter. So maybe you can link an instance with your team from Pro Services that's doing some asset work for you. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the URL and paste it here. And this is going to allow you to browse the assets that are shared from one instance over the other. So let me just remove this real quick here. There we go. And then since I'm already logged into the separate instance, then the authorization is going to go smoothly. If not, it's just going to ask me for my admin credentials at both ends. But since I have active sessions, now it shows up on my original instance, the live link of my secondary instance, and we can edit and tweak this. And this allows me, every instance that is dev linked can decide what assets to broadcast, from individual assets like screens all the way to bundles of processes. So entire builds can be pulled. So notice the bundles and assets that are in this training instance. In fact, if I come here, I can browse those assets. So here we are at the other end. This is the screen that we're looking for on the new hire onboarding. And we just make sure that our target, that our source is actually sharing those assets. So that's why you can see here that this training instance is in fact sharing all its assets, its screens, which allows me in our target instance, in our wherever we want to pull it from, to be able to browse it. So I'm going to view the screens that exist at in our training instance. Let me search for that hire screen that we found, and yeah, it's right there, our new hire onboarding. I'll click the the download or the install asset button, and this is going to bring this asset straight into my instance. So it's a very nifty way to move assets around, publish from development work. So now in my local instance, if I go to my screens, and there it is, the new hire onboarding that we just pulled off of the dev linked instance. So let's open it here, and sure enough, this is the screen that we were seeing. It's part of a template from last year. We just want to reuse these pieces. So now what I want to do is, how do I bring this to my original screen that we have over here? So I'm just going to go ahead and, we have some sections here. Let's create a section for those required accounts. So I'm just going to go ahead and move a kind of a new header here. And let's just place it in the right spot. And then, all right. And this is going to be those required accounts. All right. Um, all right. And then here's the screen that we just moved in. So now what I'm going to do is, notice that for every screen element that we select, we have this new green plus, and this is going to add elements to our clipboard. It was copied to our clipboard, which allows us to drag and paste it in any other screen. So I'm just going to go ahead, open the clipboard element in our new screen, and just drag. Whatever lives in our clipboard is immediately plopped. And notice it works for any screen element, so individual elements, but also entire containers like this multi-column. And sure enough, we have a beautifully rendered required account selection that is simple enough, but it's time consuming if I were to recreate manually, more so because it existed in an instance different than mine. So um, very convenient how we just brought that into pieces and was able to connect it real quick. The clipboard will live as an additional page that is present in all our screens, and we can see here the content that we put together. This is going to reproduce itself every time we drag and paste, no matter where we do. And in fact, the clipboard works like any regular screen. So you can edit your clipboard directly. Maybe you have assets that you reuse or components or design choices that you reuse over and over again. By storing them manually in your clipboard, you can always reuse them. So let me just do a quick example. Now that we use this box, we can get rid of it. Always copy this in a new input. So now this is what my clipboard looks like, which means that in any screen that I am, or in any page of any screen, every time I drag and paste, it's going to place whatever is in our clipboard. So an extremely useful time saver for for our designers. All right, and we can clear our clipboard here, and voila. So that's a pretty useful implementation. So now, perfect. Let's go ahead and come back to this, where we are going to do a similar thing for the development plan. So it's all this form that we brought from our training instance has sections for first week, first month, first quarter reviews. So I'm going to go ahead and add all these elements to our clipboard so we can use them. And perfect. You can notice that we can see them copied. If I go to clipboard, you'll notice that our clipboard now has these elements. So wherever we drag it, we can reuse them pretty pretty easily. So let's go ahead and close this. And then I'm just going to create a new screen so that we create something for our manager to review and adjust the performance plan for our new hire. So let's be quick about this. I'm just going to create a new screen for a manager performance plan review. And this is going to allow whoever is the manager for this new applicant is going to be to tweak this. We'll use the same template here. So notice how the screen templates just keep us with a consistent look and feel. Review performance plan. And then once this is in place, we can remove some of these pieces that came along with the template. Then we go to our clipboard, drag and paste, and right in a couple of seconds, we have our brand new performance plan screen. It's looking great. Just need to clean up some of these templated fields, but otherwise, it looks pretty nifty. Let's get rid of this, and then all right. So now we'll save this. All right. So now let's come back to, um, let's come back. Let me see, we're saving here. All right. Then bear with me. All right. All right. Yes. So we want to create a genie to fill out these pieces. Here I have a genie for performance plan reviews. Basically, what we want to do is pre-fill these performance rich text boxes for our manager so they don't fill it out from scratch. This is a very simple genie that is basically taken into context some blogs about performance reviews. Of course, it has all the context around around the case, so it knows the job position, who the manager is. So we're going to go ahead and use this genie um, in our process. So let's go ahead and put that together. Let me just scoot this in here. We have the review performance plan that we created. Now we're going to go ahead and create a genie. That way our manager won't even need to start from scratch. they'll get a Genie suggested performance plan. And of course, using that screen that we copied, or they'll be able to just adjust it as needed. All right, we can't capture the Genie response, and we're ready to go. All right, so now, okay, so um, we've got our we've got our we've got our let me see. Here's the Genie. All right. All right. We want a Genie to create a welcome message for the welcome email. Now that we've got the performance plan, I'll just scoot in here a create a welcome message. We have another Genie. We're not building these live, and we've shown how to do Genies in the past. I'm just showing them. It's a basic Genie that is going to suggest the content of an email welcome message based again in context of who the applicant names. Notice it's formatting the fields okay. So I'm just going to take this, the variable that comes out of the Genie, and I'm going to add it to the Genie task. This is going to basically take all the context of the of the case so far, and add it to a welcome message that we're going to send the applicant. So this means that we're going to come over here, and here we have kind of the default. Um, Here we have kind of the default um, email template message. So let's just go ahead and replace that with the email content that came with the Genie. That way, of course, we can tweak this message, but right now we're just going to keep it as is. And then I'm going to add a quick link in order to basically invite the applicant through this email message to maybe fill out some additional information through a conversational form. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a quick message to please fill out some information. And then we have a link in our email message. So this should point towards a new conversational form that we're going to put together. So what we're going to do is just take that. What we're going to do is just take that task that we're assigning the applicant, and turn it into a web entry, and take the URL for the web entry and add it to the link. So here's the task. Let me just come over here. Here's the web entry. Let's just add how we can configure a web entry. Web entries are pretty useful. So if you're unfamiliar, just feel free to check out our user guides on web entries, but it'll allow us to publish ProcessMaker forms, including conversational forms, so that we can use them. And like we're showing here, here's the URL that's going to be part of that email message. And this is going to invite the user to fill out the conversation as we set it up in a few minutes. All right, so we have our email template here. And so let's go ahead and put together that conversation that we're inviting the user for. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new screen here. Or let's configure the web entry. All right, there we go. What to show when it's completed. All right, so now we need a screen to show the employee that's going to be linked off of that. That's going to be linked off of that email. So let's just come here, create a new screen. All right, and then let's let's pick a conversational, and this is just going to be what we show our new applicant. So I'm going to choose here something like let's just put in a new hire conversation. All right, so let's kick off this new screen. All right, and then all right. So this is the screen builder, similar screen builder, but we've got specific controls for conversations like open inputs, select inputs, rich text, navigation controls, files, and action tasks that we're going to get a chance to take a look. This is going to allow us to really configure how this conversation is going to unfold. So let's just get the conversation started um, with a quick rich text to work as the start of the conversation. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a add a welcome message. So conversational forms allow us to both have open-ended conversations as well as structured, which are very important in the context of many of these. So, of course, if you're familiar with how we manipulate flows and orchestration, we can leverage all that power within our conversations as well. So welcome to ProcessMaker. Excited to get you started. Um, all right, so now let's just come in here and um, we're going to want to do a couple of things with these conversations. Um, One of the useful things that we want to do as we're interacting with our applicant is to get them to confirm and maybe update some information that we have on them. So in this example that we saw on our collection, basically we have very basic information for the sample, but this included, for instance, a target start date that's in the collection. So we can present that and have the customer confirm or adjust. And the same concept can be applied if we want to have like a complete profile update. Maybe we want to make sure that applicants have their latest information up to spec. So here's the target start date, as we can see on our sample screen that we've been putting together. So we're just going to use that in the conversation. So we have you for targeted start date. And then we plop these messages. And then using these rich text controls, this is how we communicate to the user, and we collect their response through any sort of input fields. So let's just add a select field, a select list. This allows us to have, as I mentioned, controlled responses. We can have open-ended responses with line inputs. We'll see them in a bit, or we can have controlled responses if we want to uh, like offer guardrails to the conversation. So here I'm just going to go ahead and add a date confirmation. Um, Let me just format this a little better so we can highlight that in our conversation. And then I'm just going to go ahead um, and in fact, for the date conversation, I'm just going to go ahead and move this. Does this date still work for you? Let's just add this directly to our date control. All right. And then, all right. And so we're going to just configure some responses here real quick. All right. So maybe we'll say how we want the options to display. So this date works, and um, I want to suggest a new date. All right. So we're allowing for some options here. All right. All right. And then we introduce the concept of jumps and breaks. So these are basically the alternative to gateways in conversational forms. So basically, in the same context of the conversation, without switching tasks or without breaking this into large models for orchestration, we just create different flow paths directly in the conversational form. So we use jump elements to evaluate conditions that can move us to different places in our conversation. So basically, we're reacting to the response of, does this date still work for you, to determine if we want to collect a new suggested date or not. So here we create a section for creating a new suggested date. So no worries, we can take care of that, and please select a new date. So we're basically adding some variability to where we want the conversation to flow depending on the user responses. Um, all dynamically and evaluated using our same orchestration engine that provides some strong guardrails. So now that we have this in place, um, we want to, so first we wanted to update and confirm information that we have. Another thing that we can do is collect additional information. So let's say that we want them to contribute uh, pieces that we're missing. So a scenario can be to find out if we need maybe a photo of the candidate or maybe a snapshot of a document that they have. So let's create a section for files. Let me see if we have a recent photo of you on file. And for this, we have basically a, we're going to try to find a way to determine if we have a photo on file. And the way how this works is we're going to use, in the context of this conversation, um, in the context of this conversation, let me say it right here. All right. Uh, yeah, a new action task. And inline actions are very powerful because they allow us to trigger all of these um, action assets from ProcessMaker. So scripts, decision tables, even genies, data connectors directly within the context of our conversation. So we have a script that basically checks for a photo in the collection and it returns a response. And so we can trigger these action tasks as responses to conversation pieces. And this allows also to ensure the guardrails uh, of an AI conversation in the context of rules and policies enforced through different ProcessMaker assets like scripts or decision tables. So basically what we put together here is a section that is validating the response of a script, whether we have a photo or not, and then add different pieces in order to collect if to collect them if we're missing them. So we have jumps that are checking for those responses, and they're going to take us to different breakpoints in response to that. And we just have breakpoints as place markers of our conversation to where we want to jump, maybe to skip a section if we already have it, or to actually route into a branch that collects the pieces if we're missing them. So I'm just going to go ahead and configure these sections real quick. Um, but this is going to allow us to evaluate that. So if the script returns that there is a photo, we can skip that. And if not, let's just go ahead and add that. So let me just configure this. If the photo is not none, then where do we want to go in our conversation? And here we have our different sections that we've been created, marked by breakpoints. All right, so these exist. So now let's create what needs to happen if we don't have it. So for that, let's just add an additional message. And then, right, so since we didn't find that conversation, that photo, then we're going to create this alternate path real quick. Looks like we don't have a photo on file, and then we can collect it through a file upload. Now, keep in mind, all of these, uh, all of this reasoning we could already do through conversational screens, but you had to model them directly in the modeler and string them together. So that made for pretty convoluted and complex process maps. So now all this logic is contained within the context of the same conversation. So it's not going to pollute necessarily our process map. All right. And so if you do have a photo, then we can just go ahead and skip ahead and we're just not going to ask for that. So in that case, so let's just add some additional information. So we confirmed information, we collected additional information. Now we want to present some options of what you need to do on your first week here. So this is pretty straightforward. Um, this is pretty straightforward. And then we're just going to go ahead and we have, for instance, the goals for the first week. as they were, collected by the genie and confirmed by the by the manager, those performance goals. So why don't we take the chance to present that in the context of this conversation, so that the user, now that it's confirmed by the manager, can go ahead and get a glimpse of that. So the quick way to do that is we have a variable for this. We already created it in the context of that genie. So we just take the output of that and put it here in a rich text box. So we can collect information, we can update information, and we can present information both generated by managers or generated by AI assistants, all in the context of this same conversation. All right, so now let's just add a quick piece here. Let's add a quick piece. So in our conversation, now what we want to do is have an open-ended an open-ended part, right? So we had some control and guardrails in data that we wanted to control. We wanted to ensure that they contribute a file. We wanted to ensure that they contribute their date, but we can also have open-ended questions. Now, for this part, we're just going to have the user interact with a genie that we can set up as an AI assistant for that specific purpose. So I'm just going to collect the question, um, and basically give them the option to determine if we want to entertain any open-ended questions at the end of our conversation. So I'm just going to create send me more placeholders. Do you have any more questions? And then by having a kind of a structured place marker here, we can also determine if we want to come back to this place at any other point in the conversation or not. So let's go ahead and configure this real quick. So we want to control how the customer responds. I have a question, or maybe um, let's add just an option so we can skip to the end. Um, we're just going to call it I'm good. All right. And so this is basically the way how we flag that we want to go into an open-ended section. And so I'm just going to go ahead and create these pieces real quick. So what we're going to do is let me just bring a couple of points to flag them out. All right. And so I'm going to call this no more. We want some more questions. And then let's add and I'm just going to go ahead and define the pieces that we need to complete. If you don't have any more questions, then we're just going to go ahead and define the end of this. All right. That determined based on the responses, where do we want to route? So let's add a couple of conditions here. If there is more, then let's go to that section that we're creating. And if not, let's just skip to the end. This allows us also to have a very tight log of how these conversations flow, which in this context is going to be pretty important to keep guardrails around our genies. All right, and then we add another inline action that is going to drive these open-ended questions. So let's go ahead and add it here. And so this inline action, let me just plop it here. All right, there we go. And then, all right, we wanted to use a genie for this. So we've talked about genies for a while. This is going to allow us to leverage that piece. we're going to pick our generic HR genie. Let me just show it to you real quick. Now, this is another example of a genie. It's a very simple one that basically takes some context and it formats the response. So, for instance, this one is feeding off an employee handbook. I just added a sample here and it takes the chat question. And of course, it brings all the context of the entire conversation. So it'll know the job position, it will know the performance goals, and it's going to use all that and the employee handbook to try to answer the question that's been collected. So let's just go ahead and collect that question. And then I'm just going to collect that. So we feed that. Here's the chat question. This is what we saw that the genie was waiting for. How can I help? That's going to help us to pass that along. Get ready here to wrap things up. All right. And then whatever came as a results from the genie, we're just going to render it here. So I'm going to place the response from the genie. All right. That way we can keep conversing with it as needed. So all we need to do is to determine, are we gonna loop or are we going to exit and keep track of that? So I'm just going to add a final. I'm just going to add a final response here. All right. Just put the last place. All right. Go.
So
Just
what's
bring
really
this in.
cool about these updated conversational forms is that it's almost like a whole process in one form. Right, Jose?
That's right. You can jump through these different sections, keep control of how it's flowing, but you offer the right guardrails to ensure that both the genies and the users don't stray too far off. So that's why, like here, I'm just, is there anything else? But if not, let me just reel it in so that we just are ready to end. All right. This is pretty simple. I'm just going to add a condition to finalize. And I know we're at the top of the hour, so we'll just stop here and kind of run through this real quick and see how all these pieces all these pieces behave. So, if we wanted to kind of keep iterating, we just send them back to more questions, and if not, then we're done. And then all we need is just kind of an end piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a quick goodbye message, and we're done. Let's just put here, thank you for using us. All right, so we have a few minutes to only just to kind of run through an example pretty quickly. Um, but we've put a lot of pieces together. Let's go ahead and try that. I'm just going to go ahead and save this, and we're to ready to take this for a spin. All right. So, oh wow, let's recap. Look at all these pieces. We're collecting information from a collection that also came from our last webinar. So who do we want to onboard? Then we'll use collection screen controls to really streamline how we read from that collection. Then we'll use a genie to determine based on the role and the position what the performance goal should be. And we're going to present that to a human in the middle. So the manager to kind of get a final say on whether that makes sense. They can tweak and adjust. And once that is clear, we're going to just create a welcome message inviting the applicant to fill out some updates. We'll send a welcome email, and the updates will come in the form of a conversation. Will they be able to both confirm information that they have, contribute additional information that we don't have, review some of these policies that the genies and their managers confirmed for them, and if time allows, ask any open-ended questions. And we put that together, in under an hour. Let's take it for a spin. Fingers crossed. So let's go ahead and just, quick save here. And all right. So to keep things quickly, let me just look for this process right here in our case list, in our new case list, new employee. There it is. All right. Here's the first task. Of course, collection screens. We pick any one of these. Here's Rachel. Here's Juan. You can see their information. Target start date. Revenue ops manager. So everything looks good. We can tinker their accounts. And of course, these can fire off additional ProcessMaker processes, maybe to spin up these service accounts. All right, this is the review plan for the manager. The Genie completed. So notice the pieces inside of the reviews. So for the first week, you do the onboarding, get familiar with the tools, notice that it's in context. So meet with sales and marketing, do a revenue team, consistent communications. All right, so this looks good. Of course, the manager can tweak these at will. If we come in here to our email, we got here a message from ProcessMaker. And let me just show that again. All right, there it is. Welcome to the team, Juan. So this is that template that was created by the Genie. RevOps Manager. Here's an overview. So the Genie is summarizing these performance goals without kind of replacing them verbatim. This is what we're expected you first week, first month, first quarter. Reach out to your manager. And that's their link. Please fill out. So that's why it shows in here. This is an overlay of what it would look like on our mobile phone. Let's just, or directly on a browser, of course. This is our Convo screen. Welcome to ProcessMaker. We're excited. This is what we put together. Now, Convo's forms can be exited and resumed if we want to fill in them out in different like settings. Let's pick a new day. Maybe I'm not sure about the date that was there. Can we do something like maybe the 1st of February and then can pass that along? We don't have a photo on file. Our script ran. Let's just add a pic. If we were on our phone, we could, of course, use our device cameras. I have here a nice pic of one in my desktop. Handsome guy. Let's just add that here. Submit. And okay, so we can see the preview. Here's a recap of your goals. So I'm just, as we mentioned, this is the summary that we saw through what the Genie was suggesting. Do you have any more questions? And notice the options. I have a question or I'm good. This can also help us keep track of how many questions are asked, how long folks, play with this. So if we can improve on these conversations. So I don't know, open-ended. What do I need to know about ProcessMaker before I start working here? I don't know if that's a good HR question. We'll punt that. It's going to run through that Genie. All right, and this is quite the extensive response. We can curate this. Let's take a closer look. Welcome to ProcessMaker. Here are some points: the mission, equal opportunity, working environment, cultural diversity, professional development, continuous learning, a strong emphasis on these. Welcome aboard and best of luck in your new role. And we can iterate on this. Anything else? No, I am good. So this process was quite a handful. We crammed a lot, but hopefully it gave a good overview of how conversations and regular tasks in Genie agents, assistants, and humans in the middle are all contributing in an experience that keeps integration and collaboration tight, keeps users engaged, and offer endless possibilities. And 30 seconds before the end of the time, as you foreshadowed, Emke, we don't have time for Q&A, but it's a big release, so hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, I am really excited about a lot of the a lot of the features that we're releasing in winter 2025. Um, you may have noticed there are a lot of these elements that are going to help all of our clients to not only maintain their existing traditional process management, but to start incorporating AI more and more into helping their organizations stay ahead of the curve. So I'm excited to see a lot of this going out. Again, please check out the Quick Start Guide at docs.processmaker.com for a little bit more information. If we didn't get to anything that you wanted to see, reach out to your customer success manager and they can share more details with you as well. Thanks, everyone.